One of the most common mistakes that I see in California is that property owners, whether it be their primary residence or investment properties, they don't hold the property in a trust. When you don't have a property titled in a trust, the estate is subjecting themselves to severe costs in the way of probate and taxes. You see, even if you have a will, it's not good enough in the state of California. Because when you sell that property, even if there's a will saying that that property is going to be inherited by, let's say, your son or your son and daughter, unfortunately, when you pass, they're going to have the biggest amount of headache you've ever seen going through probate court and paying a significant amount. I've heard reports from attorneys where people are paying 35 to 40% of the property value in probate and estate fees and taxes alone. That's a big deal. And even worse, let's say mom leaves you $1 million property and that property is subject to probate. Well, the way the probate works is they're taxing you on the gross value of the property, not the net equity. Meaning, if mom leaves you $1 million property but has a $600,000 loan against the property, well, maybe you were hoping to sell the property and inherit $400,000. Well, here's the problem. If it's subject to probate, the probate taxes, fees, and costs alone may be 30-40% of the $1 million value. So at the end of the day, you may inherit $1 million property, have to pay the bank back $600,000, pay your probate and taxes, and you may only be left with $100,000 on that $1 million asset. Now that's something to pay attention to. So step number one, avoiding capital gains taxes and estate probate taxes, is make sure that your loved ones all have their property entitled in a trust. This is so important. Here's why. When a property is in a trust, it is exempt from probate. That's going to save hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, depending on the value of the estate. When it's in a trust, what happens is, let's say mom passes away or dad passes away, the property's in a trust, they'll get what's called a step up in basis, meaning you'll get the step up in basis on that property. Now there are exemptions for, let's say a mother and a father leaving to their child. Lifetime exemption is in excess of $20 million. So right now, if mom and dad's estate is not in excess of $20 million, then you can use this as good, reliable information. So there are lifetime exemptions that exceed $20 million. So if the family's estate is under $20 million, then let's move forward operating under this understanding that there's going to be a step up in basis on the sale of that property. So again, same scenario. If mom has $1 million property and she owes $600,000 on it, well, at the time of her passing, if the property is worth $1 million, there is a step up in the basis of what that property is worth in the eyes of the IRS, meaning if you turned around and sold the property 90 days after mom's passing for $1 million and it was worth $1 million the day that mom passed, then there is considered to be no capital gain, which means there's no taxes, which means you get to keep the $400,000 of equity that mom had intended to leave for you. Now, many people think, well, if I'm going to inherit the home, I'm going to keep the home. Well, that opens up a whole other can of worms here in San Diego and in California at large, because currently, if mom passes away, let's say, and you want to keep the property, but you want to keep the county tax assessor basis. So for example, let's say mom's annual property tax is only $4,000 a year, but the property is worth $1 million. Unless you move into the property as your primary residence after mom passes away, you could be subject to a reassessment, and now you're having to pay $12,000 a year because the property is reassessed around $1 million. And for many people, that extra $8,000 a year, or that extra $600 or $700 a month, truly makes the property, unaffordable if they're thinking about, holding on to it. So that's a big reason why people choose to sell an inherited property, because of the tax reassessment. But then they get concerned because what happens? Am I going to be taxed by the IRS on all that gain? And as mentioned before, if the property is held in a trust, that is your best protection against probate and estate tax, because you'll get a step up in basis upon mom or dad's passing. which then realigns the tax basis such that when you sell the property, either weeks down the road or years down the road, you won't have to pay capital gains tax from mom and dad's old basis. You're going to get a new step up in basis, saving tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. We trust this information was helpful, something that's near and dear to my heart, making sure that properties owned in California are in a trust so you can avoid those lofty capital gains and probate and estate taxes that come along with properties that are not in a trust and don't get the benefit of a step up in basis.